Hey guys, we are back with another NECA Toys review, another San Diego Comic-Con exclusive review, and arguably the most important San Diego Comic-Con exclusive of 2019. I'm not sure that can really be debated because NECA always pulls out all the stops when it comes to this particular franchise, and I'm obviously talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and our 1990 movie line. And we've got our Shredder, Splinter, Foot Soldiers, the Capture of Splinter 4-pack here. This thing comes in a kind of standard box for NECA when it comes to the 4-pack, so you've got a longer format box. It's obviously not the same thing as the VHS type packaging we got last year, but this thing I think gets its point across. You've got the Dragon Doji there, so it's just like the headband all the way around, and this guy is actually a slipcover. You can pull this big fella off, and then you've actually got your 4-pack on the inside, and you've got all of your figures here. So you've got your Foot, your Shredder, Splinter, Foot, and then you've got the weapons rack over here. And then the back of the package has got a little bit of a write-up. You've got some recreated shots from the movie with the toys, as well as one big recreated shot with Shredder interrogating Splinter. So this is, by all accounts, a fantastic package, great presentation. It's not quite as cool as the VHS box, but come on, these look pretty stellar no matter what. So let's do it. Let's pull these guys out and take a look. And here they are out of the package, and frankly, this set is, I mean, it's just as good as you expect it to be. It is a truly amazing pack of figures, and it's really going to be hard to say that this release is not the top release of the year. I'm not sure that this is going to be my number one because that quarter scale Shredder is still just the best thing ever. But as far as a package goes, this thing is really hard to top. It's a lot of cool stuff, a lot of great accessories, and then 4 pretty stellar figures with, I'd say, let's be honest, 2 really amazing figures, and then 2 figures that are just great on their own. So, let's jump right in, take a look at these figures. We're going to start with the Foot Soldiers, and then we're going to focus on the big 2. We're going to go through them individually, and then we'll talk about all the stuff that this pack comes with because it's loaded. So we've got our Foot here, and obviously we've got 2 of these figures. They are the same. There's no real reason to have 2 on screen at the same time, especially when we're talking about articulation. And these guys they're really similar to the quarter scale figures. They are a little easier to manipulate. They don't have as many ratcheted style joints, but they move really similarly, and they're just as articulated as I hope they would be. So these guys move around really, really well. The heads can look all the way up. The necks are also articulated, so you can get a little extra momentum there. You've got movable bandanas as well at the back. You got swivel at the head, you got bobble, and then the necks, of course, allow for a great deal of motions. Then, of course, left and right, up and down, all the way around. So they move really, really well. Arms go out. They rotate at the shoulder. You've got a swivel at the elbow, which also has a double jointed hinge there. So you've got one at the top and one at the bottom. And then you've got a swiveling forearm, swiveling wrist, and then you've got hinges there as well. You've got the waist twist, which is a double ball peg, so you can pull them forward, backward, bobble side to side, and then rotate. Legs go out. They kick forward and backward, and then they rotate up in there as well. And then you've also got double jointed knees. Mine have been pretty stiff across the board with the Foot Soldiers and with Shredder, but not in the sense I haven't had to heat them up. They've just been a little harder to move. And then you've got rocker and you've got hinge down there at the ankle. And Shredder is basically the exact same as these as well. So once you kind of play around with one, you know what to expect with the others. But they do move around really, really nicely. Pretty solid articulation on these guys. I don't really have anything that I think I'm missing except for maybe some kind of an upper diaphragm cut, but at the same time I wouldn't want to break up the sculpt on these guys, so I really like what we've got going on here. And just like I mentioned, they are still really similar in a lot of ways to the quarter scale. Now, when it comes to the overall look and feel, I mean, these guys really jumped right out of the screen. Just like I'm a huge fan of the quarter scale because, I mean, it basically looks perfect. These guys are just as good. They just happen to be scaled down. And every inch of these figures are covered in sculpted detail. There's really no real estate on these that hasn't been touched in some way. So all of the fabric, the weave, and the mesh in their actual suits is all sculpted. So nothing is smooth on this figure. It's all very rough, and it feels 100% textured. You've got like the ring mail that's on their gauntlets. You've got the spikes on the pads on the top of the hands and the little Dragon Doji symbol there. You do have the same thing that we had with the quarter scale when it comes to the belts. You've got the elastic band to allow you to put something in their waist while still retaining a lot of the detail with the sculpted belt down there. They are fairly basic for the most part. I mean, they're Foot Soldiers. They're supposed to be mostly black, but there is a lot of depth to the colors here. They are very much shaded through and through, while at the same time still being very uniform in color, if that makes sense. You can tell that they are supposed to be in shadow, and it very well comes through in this sculpt and just in the paint applications here. It may not look like it until you get them in hand, but there is actually a lot of paint work here. It's just really, really subtle. And then you've got these fantastic head sculpts that have the very bug eye mesh lenses over the eyes. You've got the holes over the mouths, and it's just a great head sculpt. It's again a very basic thing because there is no facial features here, but they've perfectly captured the mask look for the foot soldier, for the foot ninja out of the movie, and I couldn't be happier. They did a great job on the quarter scale, and it translates just as well at this level. And the only positive thing here, outside of the fact that they look great, is that the fact that you have two in this set. So you don't have just one fantastic figure. Right out of the gate, you've got a second one. So we did the foot, we have to do Shredder afterwards, obviously. And I know that Shredder is one of the big draws for this set. Splinter is obviously a huge draw for people as well, because we've never seen him ever from NECA. And despite the fact that I've already gone through the quarter scale Shredder, I'm really, really, really happy with this figure and really excited to take another look at it. And honestly, I think it might be my favorite thing in this set, just purely because it's Shredder and because it's a really stellar figure. He is, of course, very similar to the foot. I mean, realistically, there is nothing different on this guy as far as articulation goes. The only real difference, because I'm not really going to go through most of it since we did the foot soldier, they are identical and basically from the neck down outside of the gauntlets and everything, which doesn't get in the way of any articulation. The only real difference is that right now I've got his cape on him, so that could in some ways hinder articulation at the head. He also has an extra piece that sits around his collar, but the head can still look up, and he can look down, and he can bobble side to side, and he can do full rotation, all that good stuff. Everything else is identical to the foot soldier, so, you know, he can move just as well, and of course, without the cape, nothing gets in the way, and you can easily take that thing off. The big draw for this figure for me personally is not articulation, though. It's having this look in 6-inch scale, and I mean, he looks about perfect. Honestly, I really, really love the quarter scale. I think it's a sight to behold, especially to hold that thing in your hands and play around with it. It's a unique experience because they really went all out on it. But this guy is pretty fantastic. And I do have one minor gripe with this guy. It's nothing crazy. It really is the cape. It's kind of a good thing and kind of a slightly not so good thing. But for the most part, I mean, this figure is basically the same as what we get with the foot soldier. He's got a different suit, obviously. He's red. He's got that kind of maroon color. And then he's covered in kind of glitter, a little bit more than the quarter scale as well. So it's slightly different, slightly shinier, which is a bit of a positive because he is bright in the movie. He, of course, has the gauntlets all over him. So you've got these extra pieces on the forearms, which have slightly rubbery blades, which is nice because the quarter scale one, some of them are really sharp. You've got the humongous double-bladed weapon that he holds in his hands, and you've got the shin guards down here. But of course, I mean, the major thing for this figure is still the cape. And just the fact that they were able to translate this into this scale, I mean, I keep going back to the quarter scale because it's my frame of reference. That thing has probably the best soft goods I think I've ever come across, personally. These are a pretty close second. The only thing is that I think just with everything scaling down, the cape does not sit quite as well as the quarter scale one does. It still looks really amazing. I mean, the fabric that they've used here, the ability to get this ridiculous tiger stripe design is just perfect. And then, of course, the fact that the pleats are in there so you can kind of pull it back, sit it down upon his pauldrons up there, just like Tatsu does for him in the movie. So you can kind of sit it a little better and make it, you know, however you want it to be. So I still really, really like it. And it does just kind of clip on there. So you can pop it off if you so choose, and then it just comes right off, and you can see all the pleats and all the stitch work that's in there. And then you've got your regular Shredder, and this is the other little piece that I'm talking about, the kind of collar piece almost that sits on the top of the figure. It's a free-floating little guy there. But the figure just looks fantastic. I mean, this is perfect. There's really nothing to gripe about on this guy. He's everything that I could have wanted in a movie 6-inch Shredder, finally, after all this time. And they've done just as good a job when it comes to this helmet. The work up here is fantastic. That kind of mail armor, of course, the huge fins that run down. You've also still got the removable mouth guard. It's not as easy to pop off and on like that as the quarter scale, just because it's smaller, but you've got the removable piece there, and it just sort of pegs in because there's little keys on the side of his head, just like the quarter scale. But I do think that, honestly, the likeness is slightly better here. The scar is fantastic, and the one big thing that a lot of people griped about were the eyes and how they were positioned. That is not even remotely an issue here. They are very clean, they are very crisp, and they are very, very straightforward. They aren't looking slightly up like they are on the quarter scale. So, you know, my only real gripe is that I think this guy sits a little bit not as good as the quarter scale, but it's still just fantastic. This guy is truly an amazing action figure. He moves just as well as a foot soldier, but he looks crazy. Everything about it is just top notch. Nothing to be said negative when it comes to the looks on the base figure itself. I think NECA has truly knocked it out of the park on this one. And last but certainly not least, Master Splinter. Definitely a highlight of this set. He is far more interesting than I had originally expected. I didn't know going into this figure how he was going to be articulated because we don't have anything for him. We've never seen Splinter from NECA before. And, well, now we have. And he's pretty interesting. I mean, he looks pretty amazing, so there's that. Right out of the gate, it's a pretty solid figure, but he has maybe more articulation than you might expect, because, you know, up until now, we really haven't seen much of him. It's been him, you know, kind of being held up by the chains, which the chains are removable, by the way. They pop right off. I've seen some folks mention that they aren't intended to be taken off, and that's definitely not the case. They come right off. So that's not a thing. They don't hinder articulation either. They're just sort of there. So as far as moving this guy around, he is, of course, hindered by a number of things. He is definitely a weird shape to begin with, so the body under here is different, and he does have a pretty tightly fitting tunic on, which does get in the way. That said, Splinter's not supposed to be dynamic by any account, so it's not a huge thing. So, you know, you've got, like, the head, he can look all the way up. So if you wanted to, like, get him down, I guess, you could have him be, you know, like a mid-mutation type of scene. His head can look down. It's just a ball peg, and then you side to side, rotate. The arms can go out, as you can see, and then you can get them to go down as well. The chains are going to get in the way if they're there. You can rotate. You've got, you know, double jointed elbows. You've got rotation at the elbow. You've got hinges and rotation at the wrist. You do have a twist at the waist, so he goes backwards and forwards and side to side. The legs are just as articulated as any other figure, so they do go out. They, again, are going to be hindered in some ways because of the robe. So if you wanted to take it off, you could, but then you just have a naked rat dude. He can go forward and backward. There is a thigh cut in there as well. He does have a couple extra joints though. So you've got, you know, this knee joint here, which also rotates. Then you've got this joint here, which also rotates. And then you've also got toe articulations. So, you know, you've got a little bit of extra stuff down there when it comes to this type of creature and its knees. And then you've also got a bendy wire tail. It's not very bendy, and you know, you can sort of use it to help pick him up off the floor. He does need some balance, so don't get me wrong there, just because of the fact he's got a very small but long footprint. So you might want to use that tail to keep him up, but otherwise he stands just fine on his own as well. So he is pretty well articulated. He's not going to be, you know, the most dynamic figure on your turtle shelf, but he might have more stuff under there than you had originally expected. Articulation aside, I don't really think a lot of people are buying this so they can have Splinter in the most dynamic poses. We want Splinter because he's Splinter, and frankly, this is a damn good-looking Splinter. I think NECA has done a really good job here. They went to all the detail to sculpt every facet of this figure, so everything, even the stuff you can't see, is fully sculpted, but what you can see is really nicely done. So, you know, you've got his kind of wiry frame. Splinter is supposed to be old, and he definitely looks like an old mutated rat man. So you've got like all the bandages down here on his ankles, on his feet. You've even got the kind of claws that are done there. The tail looks really nice. Of course, like I said, it is a bendy wire, so it does, you can kind of position it a little bit. It's not the most, but it does work a little bit. You've got a lot of dry brushing and wash in the fur to help it stand out. I mean, most of the body is covered by the robes, and really the robes are a great implementation of soft goods here. They feel very, for lack of a better term, they feel really ratty, and they certainly look the part as well. They're really dirtied up. They've got holes, they've got tears like at the elbows, on the back side here. Of course, we do have the chains on him. This is how he comes in the box, so I figured I'd just leave him on. They are an accessory, but they have been one of the key facets of this figure when he's been on display ever since he was revealed. So you do have like a real metal chain here, and these just clip onto his biceps here. They've got little pins, and then you can pop them off just like that. And the chain can come off as well, just like that. So you've got these little clasps, and then the chain, and then you've got Splinter, and you can either have him chained up, or I'm probably not going to be using those in my permanent display, but you do have the option. They, of course, they cover some other holes on the figure as well when they're on. You can see we've got a lot of sculpt down here in the chest, so there's a lot of paint in here as well. Just because it's hidden, they didn't decide to cover it up with just soft goods. They still actually went the extra mile and did it. Maybe the one thing I don't really like about this guy is the belt, this kind of ribbon almost. I just don't think it looks as good as the rest. I feel like it should be a little more, tattered compared to the rest of the figure, but it holds him together, so it works well. It works well. It's doing what they want. Of course, the head sculpt is pretty solid as well. A lot of paint, a lot of texture detail. You've got the cut up ear, so you do have that asymmetrical look, and there's just some age that you can see here. He certainly looks very much like his movie counterpart, and I really don't have anything negative to say about this figure. Even this belt, it's just a minor annoyance. Otherwise, I think he is exactly what we've all been waiting for. A great counterpart to Shredder, and a great kind of way to finish out the family and have him join the Turtles. They did a great job with this guy. There's just no doubt about it. Now, as far as accessories goes, where to start, really? There is a ton of stuff in this set, and we've already kind of talked about a few things like Shredder's cape and the shackles for Splinter, but there's just everything in this thing. So you've got pretty much all the same stuff that came with the quarter scale foot and Shredder as far as those figures go, but then we've also got other stuff. So this is obviously the Capture of Splinter set. That's the theme. So we've got this guy here to kind of go along with the shackles. It's just like a kind of a cardstock paper box, really, which looks like a crate. It's got a fake NECA logo with the anniversary for the Turtles movie on there, and you can get Splinter to stand up on that. He might need a little balancing to stand up on it well, because he's not gonna stand too perfectly on his own, but this looks really good. A lot of detail on it. I mean, it's not a sculpted piece, but there's a lot that went into actually making this look as crate-like as possible. So you've got that guy there, and then there is a bunch of just other stuff here. So obviously, over here we've got the weapons rack, which is likely going to be a unique aspect of this set, just like this is probably going to be unique, and probably the shackles are going to be unique to this. You're probably not going to see those in a wide GameStop exclusive release, I bet. So you've got the rack here, and not everything will go on this. These are really for the bigger weapons. So you've got Shredder's spear that we see at the end of the film. We've got a plain bow staff here. We've got one katana. And then we've got the very unique and telltale foot soldier style axe that they chopped the hell out of April's apartment with. We've got a tonfa. We've got a pair of sais here with some silver paint on them and little black accents. You've got a pair of nunchucks with a real metal chain. So these are the ones that have the metal studs that are on the handles. And then we've got a pair of regular nunchucks, and these are actually interesting because these are kind of a change. The newer reissues of the movie Turtles that GameStop sell actually have nunchucks that are like this now. So Mikey's nunchucks currently have a bendy wire in them, and these do as well, whereas before they were kind of like a rope almost, or some kind of a string. So that's a little bit of a change up there. We've also got Shredder's got the knife here that you can have him put in his belt, so give this to Splinter if you want at the end. You've also got an extra bandana end for the foot soldier, so you pop the ones off and it's a little different sculpt there. And then you've also got a bunch of hands, so you've got 8 different extra hands that will go with your foot or your Shredder. So for Shredder, you've got an open palm left hand with the blades. You've got a gripping left hand, and then you've got a gripping right hand, and you've got an open palm right hand. So basically just 2 full sets of hands that are doing different things. And the same thing goes for the foot soldier. So you've got a set of open palm hands here for the foot, and you've got a set of gripping hands for the foot. So you've got basically all of that which you would share across your 2 foot soldiers. and you can get them into some pretty good combinations as well. Splinter doesn't really have a great deal of stuff. Frankly, I'm not upset about that. I'm glad that the foot soldiers got the lion's share, and I'm really glad that we got this. I'm really happy to have something like this. I think it's really nice. It'll come in handy for other videos too. So we've got just a tremendous spread of accessories here. They really went all out when it comes to packing this box, and there's really not much that I can think of that we're missing. On top of all this stuff, you've also got, of course, the shackles again, and then you've got this wild, crazy cape, which is a bit of a pet peeve of mine in some facets, but I mean, you can't deny that it just looks amazing, and it's a great, well-rounded set. Of course, we have to talk real quick about how these guys look next to the turtles, and I think, honestly, I think they scale really, really well. Shredder is slightly taller than everybody, and that's obviously due to in some respects to his helmet, but the turtles scale a little bit smaller, a little bit bulkier, but still shorter, and then Splinter is quite short compared to the rest of them, which is a little bit of a contrast to the quarter scale because they are all relatively the same size. These guys, I think, are a little bit closer to how they should be, and frankly, I don't know, for my money, you can't beat this lineup. I think that they look just exceptional next to each other. So I think it's obvious at this point that, yeah, I just really like this set of figures. I think NECA's done, again, an amazing job with these. The turtles were pretty mind-blowing to begin with, the quarter scale and the 6-inch scale figures. But these are something spectacular in their own right. They accompany the turtles really, really well. They make a fantastic set, but just taking as their own, the Shredder is an amazing figure. The foot soldiers are amazing, and Splinter is fantastic, and he was so much of a surprise when it comes to articulation, and just having him in hand, getting to feel the soft goods, everything is just really, really nicely done on these figures. Even if I have a slight gripe when it comes to posing this Shredder's cape, I still think everything just looks fantastic. All the accessories we get, the sculpt, the paint, the attention to detail is pretty much second to none. I know we're kind of getting tons and tons of turtle stuff, well, eventually anyway, but it's hard to beat this stuff right now. NECA has really set the bar high for themselves to begin with, and anybody else that's going to try to do turtles. This is a really hard thing to beat, and yeah, just get these however you can, whenever you can. You will not be disappointed. I can guarantee it. So that's going to do it for this look at the NECA Toys SDCC 2019 Capture of Splinter set. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And until next time.